Hello ladies and gents, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something interesting, specifically experimenting with Sequator settings and observing their effects on the stacked images. The images I will be testing and playing around with today are 17 light frames and 6 dark frames, all shot at an ISO of 6400 through a Sony NEX3 camera at 10 degrees centigrade ambient temperature and through a 6-inch Celestron C6 telescope. All these stacked images are going to be of 25-second exposures. So without much ado, let's have a look and see how the settings affect these images. The first image is the blank view of the Dumbbell Nebula. No settings are applied other than stacking and selecting best pixels. As can be seen, the image looks pretty flat and quite crappy, to be honest. There is not a lot of dynamic range. The nebula is extremely faintly visible. You can sort of see the central star that caused the nebula, as well as some of this glowing hydrogen, I would assume, on the sides. As for the bluer nebulosity, you can't really see it, unfortunately. The background also appears quite bright, and the SNR is quite abysmal. This image took 130 seconds to process from the 17 light frames and the 6 dark frames. This image is the previous, so flat image with the setting of auto brightness applied to it. As can be seen, the image looks, well, as the name would suggest, a bit brighter. Granted, the contrast, I would say, did not improve much, and it looks arguably even more washed out compared to the previous image. Which I guess makes sense because it's literally just brightened. This image, interestingly enough, took 143 seconds to process. The next available setting to select would be high dynamic range. In my opinion, the setting of high dynamic range just completely ruined the image. The image now looks absolutely washed out, and the already abysmal signal-to-noise ratio in the auto brightness image was just completely washed out by applying the high dynamic range effect onto the image. What's interesting is the image took 138 seconds to process, which is less than the previous image. I suppose this could be attributed to the fact that I had my computer charging while it was processing, and it might have just gotten a little hotter and maybe thermally throttled. I'm not sure, but either way, it clearly took more time to process than the first flat image. The next setting that is available to apply would be to remove dynamic noises. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how this setting works in Sequator, but I mean, I guess as the name would suggest, it removes dynamic noises. Personally, I can't really see that much of a difference between these two images. So this is the high dynamic range image, and this is the same high dynamic range image with dynamic noises removed. I suppose you could see a little bit less blotchiness in the background, so over here, as compared to this previous image. Although, I really don't see any difference. This image took 144 seconds to process. Moving on, there's a profound difference after applying the reduced light pollution filter. So right away you can see the nebula just really jumps out, and it makes a tremendous difference. Suddenly you can clearly see where the nebula is and where the background is. In fact, you can even just barely resolve these other lobes on the nebula on these two sides here, the faint bluey stuff, which was just completely invisible in the previous image. I think this personally is the most important filter, and it makes a profound difference in the image quality. This image, however, took 151 seconds to process, which is, I guess, a bit more than the original flat image, or even the previous image with just dynamic noise reduction. Even so, the difference between this image here with dynamic noises removed, with reduced light pollution, and the image just with reduced dynamic noise, the difference is profound. And I would definitely say this is the most important filter in Sequator. Moving on, Yeah, sorry about that. This next filter is supposed to be enhancing Starlight. This is supposed to be enhanced Starlight. As you can see, this filter slightly boosted the Starlight really on some of these brighter stars, making them a lot brighter. However, on these fainter stars, it didn't really do all that much. The one thing it did do, however, was significantly decrease the background brightness, which, to be honest, I like this effect. This image took 157 seconds to process. Okay, well, finally, the other thing I was interested in Sequator was to see if using dark frames or not using dark frames would have any profound effects on the image quality. All the previous images shown before this were done by stacking the dark frames inclusive to the light frames. Here, however, is the image stacked without any dark frames and using the same settings as this previous image. So, right off the bat, I can see a bit of noise, well, actually quite a bit of noise on the image. Although this glowy lobe of the nebula is pretty well resolved. I mean, it's visible. A little post-processing can do miracles on this. So, for example, using something like a denoise program will make this a great, lovely image. As for the image with darks, I mean, honestly, I don't see any difference. Perhaps there is a bit less noise in the background. And, well, I guess it looks more evenly distributed, the noise, in terms of colors and chromaticity. But, maybe right here. You can just about see it, but honestly, I really don't see a difference. At least nothing major. So, I guess on a cold night, the verdict seems that using dark frames, so one dark frame every one dark frame every 3 light frames, because I had 17 light frames and 6 dark frames, really did not make that big of a difference. And yeah, there you have it. A comparison of the Sequator tools and their effects on the images. Thank you for watching.